Part 124. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1231. Why? Why did God treat him so favorably? I should be the son of destiny. The holy sword is mine. It's all mine. Ah! Puff. Tianjian Palace's young palace master Jianming spat out a mouthful of blood, his eyes gradually congested, and his entire body trembled. Anger, helplessness, and even the despair of the Hestians. These emotions were frantically stagnating in his mind, making him feel like he couldn't breathe. Jianming weakly held the quasi-sacred longsword in his hand, feeling a sense of sarcasm inexplicably. What is this quasi-sacred longsword? Nothing counts. For him, all of this should be completely ended. According to the previous contract of the gods, if Fang Fan's sword in his final hand is of higher grade and quality than his sword, he will have to kneel and commit suicide. The contract of God is above, and the true God is staring at him. Jianming's body trembled unnaturally. He was afraid of death, he wanted to escape the punishment of death. This life, he still wants to keep it. Sword Tomb, the 8th floor. Seeing the way these divine swords were blocking the way in front of him, Fang Fan was stunned for a moment, then smiled arrogantly. It turns out that my charm is so great. Even these holy swords are worshipped by themselves. Hey, it's too good, it's not my fault. Fang Fan smiled slightly, and the smiles on his face became more and more numerous. Sword come. Fang Fan beckoned, and the 3 holy swords didn't move at all. Fang Fan's mouth twitched. Isn't this a slap in the face? Sword come. Fang Fan waved his hand again, but the divine sword in front of him remained motionless. Brother Fan, do you want them to come over? Yun Xiaoxiao wrapped her arms around Fang Fan's arm and asked in surprise. Fang Fan was a little embarrassed. Cough, just call and summon, I didn't expect that these swords can't understand human words. Fang Fan pouted, forcibly comforting himself. Brother Fan called you, come here. Right at this moment, Yun Xiaoxiao suddenly babbled, and Fang Fan was extremely surprised that something happened. Those holy swords actually trembled and rushed towards them. It's getting faster and faster. Then tightly protect Yun Xiaoxiao in the middle. With 3 holy swords as the core, and a number of quasi-holy swords as the periphery, a protective formation with a sense of order is formed. Fang Fan opened his mouth, this time he was really surprised. This strange operation wave after wave, he did not expect it. It turns out that these divine swords are looking at Xiao Xiao. I was just self-indulgent. Fang Fan only felt 10,000 grass and mud horses galloping past in his mind. Slap in the face. Just don't go too fast. Xiao Xiao, can you communicate with them? Fang Fan looked at Yun Xiaoxiao and asked directly. Yeah. These swords are cute and well behaved. As Yun Xiaoxiao spoke, she stretched out her hand and stroked the holy sword in front of her with a smile on her face. Sonorous. Seemingly feeling Yun Xiaoxiao's gentle movements, that holy sword that was touched actually jumped up and down excitedly, as if it had its own intelligence. The holy sword has spirit. This holy sword has begun to give birth to self-intellect. Fang Fan murmured to himself, and there was a flash of light in his eyes. This feeling is so real. Fang Fan looked at Xiao Xiao, and a bold idea came to his mind. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1232. Xiao Xiao, can you take all these divine swords away? Fang Fan looked at Yun Xiaoxiao, a look of excitement appeared on his face. If this road can be passed, then the benefits are not too much. There are so many quasi-sacred swords and even holy swords, it's not too cool to get them all. Send a straight stroke. Brother Fan, according to my current ability, I can almost take 3 such divine swords, or 10 swords like that. No more, it won't work. Yun Xiao Xiao blinked, first pointing to the holy sword, then pointing to the quasi-holy sword. The meaning of Yun Xiaoxiao's expression is already obvious, probably only 3 holy level long swords or 10 quasi-sacred level divine swords can be taken away at most. Although Fang Fan felt a little regretful, he knew that it was actually a good thing to receive such treatment. After all, he can only take 1 divine sword with him at most. Since that's the case, Xiao Xiao, shall we go further? Fang Fan patted Yun Xiaoxiao's head, and then smiled. How can the divine sword level of the 8th floor of the sword tomb be comparable to the 9th floor of the sword tomb? On the 9th floor of Jian Zone, there are only 9 divine swords that can be seen at present, but none of these 9 are holy swords. And the level is much higher than the 8th floor of the sword tomb. From Fang Fan's point of view, he is naturally unwilling to let go of this great opportunity. After all, such good opportunities are still too few and too few. Further up. Okay. Xiao Xiao listens to Brother Fan. Yun Xiao Xiao threw herself on Fang Fan's back, but looked rather well behaved. Fang Fan smiled slightly, and then let Xiao Xiao back away from the divine swords in front of him, and then continued to move towards the higher level of the sword tomb. Fang Fan didn't want to miss such an opportunity. The opportunity is in front of you, don't miss it. Boss Fang Fan moved. He avoided all the divine swords in front of him. What is Fang Fan doing? My God! Is this going to charge towards the top of the sword tomb? It's the 9th floor. Fang Fan is crossing the 9th floor of the sword tomb. It's so scary. So strong. So strong. Hey, is this the power of the strong? We can't compare to. Invincible. Invincible. Hey, we only have a chance to look up. Boss Fang Fan doesn't even look down on the holy level longsword on the 8th floor of the sword tomb. I have to say that I'm sour. I'm really sour. Who doesn't get sour? Fang Fan is so strong, we can only become lemon essence. The 9th floor of the sword tomb. The final king's journey. Tianjian Palace's young palace master Jianming's eyes quickly congested with blood. He glanced at the sky silently, and then lowered his head to look at the supreme quasi-sacred sword in his hand. Waist sword. Waist sword. Jianming made a roar, his face gradually became distorted, and his hands were covered in blood. The anxiety in my heart is like reality. No. Fang Fan is absolutely impossible to cross to the 9th floor of the sword tomb. He can't. He absolutely can't. If he falls in the middle, then he is equivalent to never getting a sword, then I'm still the winner. I'm still the winner. According to the contract of God, that bastard is going to die. Yes. That's it. The end result must be like this, I predicted it. Jianming swallowed a mouthful of saliva and shouted excitedly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1233. It's a pity that Jianming's imagination did not come true after all. Fang Fan's climb from the 8th floor to the 9th floor of the sword tomb seemed extremely easy, even with Xiao Xiao on his back, there was no problem. A 7th level god like Nai Yan can only stop at the 8th floor, it seems that my god of the wasteland is still extremely strong to some extent. Fang Fan pondered inwardly, and his eyes flickered with light, this is similar to what he expected. Even Sikong Yuxin, the self-proclaimed goddess of the Tianyu Chamber of Commerce, can only stop at the 8th floor of the sword mound and cannot continue to climb. She may have been blessed by a true god, but relatively speaking, this true God is not as strong as she imagined. Fang Fan pondered secretly, glanced around at random, and thought to himself. According to the current form, it is probably like this. At present, in the entire sword tomb, most of the 6th to 9th floors are practitioners under Fang Fan's command. In the 8th floor, in addition to Sikong Yuxin, there are Galen, Weijia, and Nai Yan. In the 7th floor, there is only the young palace master Ji Unming of Tianjian Palace, and the others are all cultivators under Fang Fan's command. At this moment, Fang Fan is standing on the top floor of the sword mound, overlooking the surrounding area. On the top floor of the sword tomb, there are indeed only 9 divine swords, no. More precisely, it should be 10. Fang Fan raised his head in surprise, took a breath of cool air subconsciously, his eyes flickering brightly. There is another one behind the 9 holy swords. This seems to be a holy sword too. However, this holy sword will be more delicate. Fang Fan narrowed his eyes, making a secret evaluation in his heart. 1-star holy sword. The one at the back is the 1-star holy sword. As for the 9 holy swords placed in front, most of them are holy swords of 3 to 5 stars. It stands to reason that the 1-star holy sword should be placed on the 9th floor. And I always feel that this 1-star holy sword is a bit special. Fang Fan walked forward silently, his mind swaying. Swoosh swish. Just as Fang Fan was walking forward with Xiao Xiao on his back, the holy swords rushed towards him frantically, and the speed seemed extremely fast. Dazzling. It's for Xiao Xiao again. Xiaoxiao's god-slaughtering spirit body is very useful, these holy swords will eat this set. Fang Fan sighed with emotion, this physique is more useful than a god position. The strange thing is that the 1-star holy sword that stands alone has not been added, it hasn't moved from beginning to end. Is it because it didn't give birth to intelligence? Or is it dismissive? Fang Fan couldn't help but ignite a fire in his heart. If he was really dismissive, then this 1-star holy sword must not be as simple as it looks on the surface. It's surrounded by holy swords again. Let Fang Fan choose at will. Hey, I'm used to it, I'm really used to it, I'm used to being beaten. Boss Fang Fan is a god in my eyes, a supreme god. It seems that there is nothing that Fang Fan can't do. Haha, if Fang Fan can't do something, others can't do it either. 9 holy swords. This lineup, so strong. Well, I am so excited that I am strong enough to have a 4-star emperor level sword, and I can't compare with the big brother. The difference is too big. Hey, everyone, don't be discouraged, we are much better than that one. During the conversation, everyone gradually focused their attention on Ji Unming, the master of the young palace of Tianjian Palace. Divine system of the strongest card supplier in the end times, Doomsday strongest card supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1234. Because he couldn't bear the strong pressure on the 7th floor of the sword tomb, Ji Unming simply rolled down from above. After reaching the bottom, there are naturally countless Tianjian Palace practitioners around. However, although these heavenly sword palace practitioners are still respectful on the surface, their attitudes have already undergone tremendous changes. In other words, I don't care much about sword life anymore. After all, from their point of view, Jianming's life has been cold for most of it. Now it's just forcibly continuing to live. Offended Fang Fan, do you still want to live? The key is that the contract of God was signed with death. It can only be said that it is unfortunate. No. I can't die, I definitely can't die. I want revenge, I still have a lot of things to do. Ji Unming gritted his teeth, killing intent in his eyes, and endless resentment emerged in his heart. These grievances are naturally vented on Fang Fan. After all, Fang Fan made him have the current ending. Kneel down and commit suicide. I can't do it. The contract of God was what I had to sign at the time. But, even if it violates the contract of God. It's not a dead end. Jianming pondered secretly, his eyes flickered, and he seemed to see a chance to survive. It's better to die than live, he still understands this truth. If there is a chance to live, why do you have to execute the path of death? Sword Tomb, the 8th floor. Sikong Yuxin silently held a holy sword in his hand, and looked at Fang Fan on the 9th floor of the sword tomb, a pair of indifferent eyes filled with unresolved colors. This Fang Fan and that little girl are very weird. Fang Fan, needless to say, being able to be targeted by the true God himself, it is conceivable that he is definitely not an ordinary person. It is even very likely that other true gods will be reincarnated and reborn. If you can kill him, take his divine position, and dedicate it to the goddess will be very happy. As for the little girl, I always feel a sense of panic when I approach her, as if there is something extremely terrifying about her. These people are so weird. But no matter what, the divine sword you finally get will be mine. Everything here will be mine. Sikong Yuxin's indifferent face showed greed. Sword Tomb, 9th floor. Brother Fan, which divine sword do you want? I'll let it follow you. Yun Xiaoxiao was lying on Fang Fan's shoulder, stroking the 9 holy swords in front of her. Yun Xiaoxiao's meaning is also very simple, that is, if Fang Fan is willing, she can let any divine sword follow Fang Fan. Fang Fan was silent. The highest level of these divine swords in front of them even has a 5-star holy sword. This is a 5-star holy artifact. Priceless. The average quasi-sacred artifact is worth 1,000 star cores. 1-star holy artifact selling hundreds of thousands of star cores is not a problem. As for the 5-star holy artifact long sword, the million star core? 10 million star cores? Not necessarily impossible. I want that divine sword. Fang Fan looked at the 1-star holy sword that was motionless, and a relieved smile appeared on his face. It was really tangled before, but now I feel much more comfortable after I make up my mind. That sword. Well, Brother Fan, then I can't help you. That sword is so arrogant, and you don't want to come and play with me. Yun Xiaoxiao said with a pursed mouth. Divine system of the strongest card supplier in the end times, Doomsday strongest card supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1235. Fang Fan was stunned for a moment. Arrogant. Using arrogance to describe a sword always feels a little awkward. But from Xiaoxiao's tone, you can tell the unusualness of this sword. Fang Fan glanced at the past, with a hint of visitation. The whole body of the sword is dark, and it seems to be simple and unpretentious. The sword glow is completely restrained, and the position is relatively back. If you don't observe carefully, it is really difficult to find. This is like a hermit in a sword, silent and unassuming. Fang Fan walked over with strides, and reached out his hand to silently touch the dark sword. Black sword couldn't help but tremble, and seemed a little unhappy. Getting closer, Fang Fan found some traces on the sword. On the sword, there are also engraved 2 characters of dragon flying and phoenix dance. Cut the sky. What a domineering name. Fang Fan's eyes lit up, and he couldn't help but sigh. Dare to cut even the sky, this sword is going to defy the sky. I don't know why, since the first sight of this sword, Fang Fan has had a strong interest in it. It's like seeing the girl he loves, that kind of ignorant joy. Do not touch me. Take your hand. An arrogant female voice couldn't help but appear in Fang Fan's mind. The voice seemed to be quite arrogant. Fang Fan was stunned for a moment, and then he realized that he had never had hallucinations, the voice just now really existed. You are, the sword spirit of the black sword. Fang Fan pondered for a while, and probably guessed it. Humph. What black sword? It's obviously the heaven-slaying sword. As soon as the heaven-slaying sword came out, the god surrendered. The proud girl continued to shout, trying her best to show her arrogance. "Oh, follow me later. I'll be your master from now on." Fang Fan nodded seriously. Although the quality of those divine swords was not average, most of the sword spirits were still in the initial stage of development. Although it is not possible to judge the merits of a sword solely from the wisdom of the sword spirit, it can also show some characteristics from this aspect. If the sword spirit of a sword is stupid, it is unrealistic to expect how precious the sword is. Fang Fan trusted his intuition. This heaven-slaying sword was unusual. "Be my master." "My God. I've never seen such a brazen person. Why don't you have any courtesy and integrity? Is this sword spirit the existence you can covet? You don't even look at yourself. My God. What kind of cultivation are you? How can I not perceive the existence of your power? It's not even a sanctuary, is it?" The sword spirit of Zhang Tian's sword babbled a lot, and Fang Fan had an inexplicable feeling of bursting in his ears. It's too good to babble. I was despised by a sword spirit. Fang Fan's mouth twitched. This is so. Ding. A super quality sword spirit has been detected. After absorbing it, it can be decomposed into 10,000 strands of the source power of God. Ding. Do you choose to swallow and decompose? The system sound came from his ear. Fang Fan opened his mouth in surprise. Super quality sword spirit? Can you get 10,000 strands of God's source power by swallowing one wave? 10,000 strands, that is the source power of 1,000,000 strands of God. That's a huge amount of money. The one time that Fang Fan obtained the most divine source power was actually the 1,000 strands of divine source power that he would get by beheading Tianyi Shen. Relying on this 1,000 strands of divine power, Fang Fan successfully sealed the 7th level divine position of Tianji Seeing disciple. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1236. Compared with 10,000 strands, 1,000 strands are indeed insignificant. Fang Fan licked his lips and said that it must be fake if he doesn't feel a little. Fang Fan thinks that he is the type with relatively strong concentration, and he is also a little moved at this moment. At this moment, his gaze towards the heaven-slaying sword in front of him has gradually changed. "You, what are you doing? Why do you suddenly laugh so lewdly? Abnormal." The sword spirit of Zantianjian subconsciously drove the Zantianjian back. Fang Fan stepped forward silently, and put his hands on the heaven-slaying sword again. "Submit to me, I can let you live. Otherwise, I can only transform you into the source of God," Fang Fan said, while driving the system's devouring power to slowly absorb. You let me go. Don't be like this. I'm just kidding you, let me go. You. If you have the source power of God, I would like to follow you." The previously arrogant sword spirit suddenly became trembling all over, and there were even some howling sounds. Fang Fan's mouth twitched. Why did he feel like he was bullying underage girls? Obviously the sword spirit is the old Black Mountain demon that has existed for many years. What do you want the source of God for? Fang Fan narrowed his eyes, looking a little surprised. I want to repair the body of the sword, or you wouldn't think I'm just a one-star holy sword, right? At the peak of the sword spirit, swords of this level are not qualified to be my nourishment. The arrogant voice of the heaven-slaying sword and sword spirit came again, which may also be one of her characteristics. I don't have much of the source of God's power here, this 1,000 threads. Thank you. Cool. Fang Fan just took out 1,000 strands of God's source power, and before he finished speaking, he disappeared directly. Obviously, it was completely absorbed by the heaven-slaying sword in front of him. Fang Fan really admires the speed of this absorption. 1,000 threads of God's source power, this is not a small number. That's it, gone. Is this raising a big stomach, King? Call the master. Fang Fan took a breath. Now that the source of God's power has been spent, it would be too embarrassing if there is no gain. The sword spirit of Zantianjian was silent for a while, it seemed to be thinking. At this moment, Fang Fan's hand came together again, and firmly grasped the dark blade of the sword, ready to carry out the next move at any time. In fact, Fang Fan is really looking forward to the sword spirit continuing to resist, so that he can devour it and decompose it into the source of God without hesitation. Owner. A timid female voice came from his ear. Fang Fan sighed slightly, his evil plan was still not carried out after all. Actually, you can resist, you resist. If you resist, I can get 10,000 strands of God's source power. I didn't expect you to be so valuable. Aren't you supposed to maintain your unyielding sword spirit character? How could you choose to surrender so easily? Fang Fan continued to pronounce, and the sword spirit was instantly stunned. What kind of shitty operation is this? What kind of master did I recognize? Covet my body all day long? Still want to devour me? The heaven-slaying sword spirit could not help but tremble slightly. Master, it's the wrong cut. It will be super nice after being cut. When Zhan's strength is repaired, it can also be transformed into a shape. Zhan is the most loyal to the master. The voice of the heaven-slaying sword and sword spirit grew louder and louder. Fang Fan's body trembled subconsciously. Divine system of the strongest card supplier in the end times, Doomsday strongest card supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1237. This sword spirit is really poisonous. It's okay to be a little more sane, and it seems that he has also performed shameless to the peak. In this state, looking at Fang Fan, his scalp is numb. What do you mean when you said you can upgrade just now? Fang Fan's eyes lit up. If this wasn't just a one-star holy sword, then this wave would be worth the money. Zhan's sword body is damaged, and it takes a lot of God's source power to repair it. A voice resounded in Fang Fan's mind again. Fang Fan narrowed his eyes, feeling somewhat surprised in his heart, but he had to admit that all this was true. The upgrade of the sword body, that sounds interesting. So, if you want a holy level to a 2-star holy sword level, how much God's source power do you need? Fang Fan narrowed his eyes and asked directly. Probably need 10 more God's source power as much as just now. Master, Zhan needs the source power of God. Zhan wants to be promoted. Zhan wants to serve the master. The sword spirit continued to shout shamelessly. Fang Fan had the urge to shoot it directly to death. Non-stop giggling, waves of nonsense followed by waves, Fang Fan felt like his head was about to explode. Just now, he has output 1,000 threads of God's source power, 10 times that is 10,000 threads of God's source power. This is not a small number anymore. God's source power, not now. Fang Fan said directly, and then directly held the heaven-slaying sword in front of him. Start to recognize the Lord. Fang Fan pondered for a moment, and then turned on the master mode. Although the sword spirit is now a cowardly look, it is impossible for Fang Fan to completely let down his guard against her before he recognizes the master. If something goes wrong in the middle, wouldn't it be a loss of money and sword? The process of recognizing the Lord still seems to be very slow. Not only slow, more precisely, it should be another blood transfer. Recognizing the master of an artifact is naturally not that simple. It's useless. I can't recognize the Lord by nature. Don't waste your time. Zhan Tian's sword spirit said with a proud face. His sense of self-confidence seemed very strong. Is that so? And there are swords that can't be recognized as masters. The corners of Fang Fan's mouth rose slightly, and he didn't take it seriously. Arigama's contract. Fang Fan's eyes flickered with brilliance, and then he started talking softly. The contract of the Wild God also belongs to one of the magical skills of the Wild God possessed by Fang Fan. It is a reward from the system for completing a task before. Origami Contract, Origami's exclusive skill. As a virtual origami, you can use it. After using it, you can make a contract with any creature regardless of your level, and make it a slave of the origami. Constrained by the power of the law, a 1-month cooling off period. Origami's contract can not only target those living creatures, even sword spirits can be treated equally. This is the power of the origami contract. At the beginning, the sword spirit of Zhan Tian's sword was arrogant and casual, and still seemed full of confidence, but then the sword body began to tremble wildly. No. Impossible. It's not like that. It's definitely not like that. There must be something wrong here. Something went wrong, it must have gone wrong. I am the heaven-slaying sword, who can submit to me and accept the master? What? The sword spirit made a hissing sound, trying to struggle, but it was too late. The power of the contract is done. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1238. The power of the contract is really extraordinary. The contract of the gods, hanging and beating everything is dissatisfied. Fang Fan smiled slightly, but he was very satisfied with the result. Ding! I succeeded in identifying the master. The attribute panel of the Heaven-Slaying Sword has been opened. Item, Heaven-Slaying Sword. Level, 1-star Sanctuary level. Status, damaged. Note, this is a sword with a story. It really is a 1-star holy sword. It's just that this note is very spiritual, a sword with a story. Fang Fan narrowed his eyes, thinking to himself, a smile could not help but show on his face. It's just that it takes too much God source to repair the heaven-slaying sword. At present, there is really no such capital. Fang Fan shrugged with a helpless look on his face. He also wanted to rise and take off, but reality didn't allow it. Brother Fan, you actually subdued this arrogant guy. Brother Fan is amazing. Yun Xiao said with a blush on the side, looking at Fang Fan with admiration in his eyes. Fang Fan smiled slightly, stretched out his hand and rubbed Xiaoxiao's little head habitually. Xiao is amazing. To be able to make so many divine swords surrender. Xiao, choose 3 divine swords with a slightly higher level, it's time for us to go down. Fang Fan reminded on the side that he can't stay on the 9th floor of the sword tomb, hold the best interests in his hands, and the rest can be disposed of at will. Okay Brother Fan. Yun Xiao nodded, then looked at the 9 divine swords in front of her. Swoosh swish. These divine swords also seem to know that Xiao is going to make a choice, and they are scrambling to show it in front of Xiao, even at the cost of a big fight. Fang Fan looked a little stunned from the side. This treatment is unbelievable, invincible. Having a strong physique can indeed hang everything to a certain extent, it is indeed impossible to be unconvinced in this regard. Some people run to the finish as soon as they start. However, in this process, Xiao also suffered a lot, not to mention anything else. Before she met Fang Fan, Xiao was a well-known ill child. The body was washed away by various spiritual powers. If Xiao hadn't encountered Fang Fan, one can imagine her current situation. You, and you. Brother Fan said to look for high-level ones. You low-level ones should upgrade well, and I'll find you later. Yun Xiao waved his hand and chose a 5-star holy sword and 2 4-star holy swords. These are all sanctuary level long swords. A random sanctuary level weapon is taken out, and it all starts with 100,000 star cores, and it is still a 1-star sanctuary level. The value of a 4-star holy sword and a 5-star holy sword like this is even higher. After the journey to select the divine sword is over, the next step is to descend from the top of the sword mound. The rewards of Wanbao Lake are far from over. Pixio armor, it has never appeared until now. This sword mound is the fourth round of Wanbao Lake's reward. According to the rules, there should be 3 more rewards. Fang Fan squinted his eyes, and there was a flash of light in his eyes. If you don't find the Pixio armor after the 7 rounds of rewards, then you can only go deep into Wanbao Lake to hunt for treasures. Fang Fan muttered to himself, gradually falling into contemplation. At the very least, plan ahead. The trip to Jianzhou was quite rewarding. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1239. Falling from the 9th floor of the Sword Tomb, everyone is watching. At this moment, Fang Fan is not an exaggeration to say that he is an idol in everyone's mind. Climb to the 9th floor of the Sword Tomb in person. Take away the Supreme Sword. I don't even care about the Holy Sword. Countless quasi-sacred holy swords to choose at random. Such a person. Clean the lead, invincible in the world. Everyone's eyes are focused, and there is a sense of shock. Big Boss Fang Fan. Big Boss Fang Fan. Big Boss Fang Fan is down. I'm going. It's amazing. Fang Fan's hand is also a holy sword. Hee, what do you think? Even going to the 9th floor of the Sword Tomb, and getting a holy level long sword, is it strange? It's awesome class. It's so strong. Boss Fang Fan is still Boss Fang Fan, it's really not good if you don't admire it. Crap. What's up with the little girl beside Fang Fan? Why is she holding 3 swords? That little girl seems to have come down from the 9th floor of the Sword Tomb. Could it be possible? Could it be that those are 3 holy swords? Ah, so jealous. So envious. In addition to the divine swords in the hands of Fang Fan, aren't they 4 holy swords? Yes, one person owns 4 holy swords. Tisk tisk tisk, is this the attitude of a strong man? Very strong. Everyone, take a look at Tianjian Palace. Before Tianjian Palace's young palace master Jianming had a bet with Fang Fan, the competition was to get the quality of the divine sword. It's definitely not comparable now, they also signed the contract of God, and the loser will be completely cold. Oh, it's a pity. The scene was once very shocking. Fang Fan fell from the sky, and the whole person was in a state of volleying. Waves of attention, waves of horror, waves of jealousy. Jianming stood at the bottom of the sword mound, and his body began to tremble unnaturally. Damn it! Damn it! Damn it! All these honors should be his. He should be the real protagonist. Whoever robs him of the position of glory will be punished. Sanctions completely. And now, the contract of God has been signed, he will face death. Silent death. No. I don't want this. Before I die, I have to kill Fang Fan. The contract of God was signed by me and him. If I kill him, can this contract be abolished? Is it terminated? Yes. It must be so, I can still live. Jianming thought in his heart, his body protruded violently, his eyes flickered with light, and the sound of inhalation seemed particularly real. All practitioners in Tianjian Palace. Kill Fang Fan with me. Before Fang Fan landed in the Sword Tomb, kill him. Kill with me. Jianming excitedly rushed over with his sword, and the quasi-sacred long sword in his hand emitted streaks of dazzling white light. At this moment, Jianming is already deeply immersed in the slaughter atmosphere, and he will use slaughter to completely end everything in front of him. Even kill to kill. This desire to kill has risen to its peak. Just following his order, No cultivator around chose to respond. One by one, they all chose to be silent. The prolonged silence made the scene seem strangely strange. There are tens of thousands of practitioners displayed around the sword mound in Tianjian Palace, but at this moment, all of them have chosen to remain silent. Obviously, Jianming was isolated. These practitioners of Tianjian Palace are not stupid either, and they don't want to die for this. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1240. Jianming's absolute confidant had been almost killed in the previous battle, and now these Heavenly Sword Palace practitioners chose to serve and follow because they were afraid of Jianming's power. As for now, Jianming's death is doomed. Either kneel down and commit suicide, or be tortured to death by the power of divine punishment. Even if the power of divine punishment fails to kill him in the end, I am afraid that he will be a waste in this life. Now go up and flatter, there is really no need for this. In that case, why did you choose to fight for the sword? Why did you work so hard before? That's because I want to get something from Jianming. For example, he took a fancy to his position as the young palace master, and felt that he would definitely be able to take over the position of the palace master of the Tianjian Palace in the future, so that they could adapt to the rising tide. Or, I think he is the young palace master, and if he doesn't obey the order, he may be targeted in the future. All in all, it's all about profit. Now that the interests have been terminated, what's the point of talking about other things? In the black and white time, only this blood looks dazzling. Jianming glanced back, the fierce look in his eyes completely overlapped with the color of slaughter. All of this made him extremely angry. Only by killing can we start a new life. You, all be damned. Jianming's eyes are full of blood, and the hatred in his heart is monstrous. Just at this moment, even if it is resentful, what can it be? The attack is coming. Fang Fan's eyes turned to Jianming, holding the heaven-slaying sword, waving a sword lightly. The combat power explodes directly. Sonorous. Puff. The heaven-slaying sword in Fang Fan's hand and the quasi-saint level long sword in Jianming's hand collided, making a harsh sound. You are really dying. Fang Fan commented indifferently all the way, and immediately pressed down the heaven-slaying sword, ready to end it directly. Jianming was suddenly shocked. When he chose Fang Fan to attack just now, he really didn't expect so much. Now that he calmed down, the whole person was instantly stunned. He felt that death was coming slowly, everything in front of him was gradually becoming unreal. Don't want. You can't kill me. I'm the young palace master of the Heavenly Sword Palace. My father is the palace master of the Heavenly Sword Palace. He won't let you go. Let me go, our grievances will be written off. Don't, I don't want to die, I really don't want to die, don't kill me, don't kill me. Do you dare to touch a single hair of me? Thousands of practitioners in my Tianjian Palace will torture you to death. It's not just you, everyone around you will be buried with you, your death situation will be completely determined. Click. Sometimes you don't need so much nonsense, things that can be solved with a single sword. A blood-colored head fell from the air, and the corpse was separated. This was the final fate of Jianming. According to the bet, you should kneel and commit suicide. Tisk, I didn't expect that I would do it for me in the end. If God does evil, you can still live, but if you do it yourself, you can't live. Fang Fan said coldly, and there were bright lights in his eyes. Immediately, he stretched out his hand and took the storage ring of Jianming and the quasi-sacred long sword that supported the extreme peak in his hand. The ultimate quasi-holy sword, at least 1,000 star cores. In this storage ring, just hundreds of billions of top-quality divine crystals. A star core is not worth it, poor ghost. There are quite a few healing cards and supply cards. Fang Fan pouted and muttered to himself.